Arthur Shepard by William Roeder. 32A19, Cao Thang, District 3, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. 84 120 3038 776. Exterior, Drovers Road, night. A terrible storm. 120 sheep, packed tight against the bending fences lining the flooded road, their 480 hooves sloshed through rainwater, half a foot deep. A dog barks, a vague shape through the haze. Arthur Shepard. He is a humble man of 34 in a poor peasant's garb. He waves his crook for balance.
Sander!
His voice is swallowed by the wind.
Sander!
The dog barrels into him, and he almost loses his footing. Sander is a sheepdog so soaked with rain that he can't see. Arthur hooks Sander's leg with his crook.
Sander, stay by me.
The Sander barks and growls and whines. Lightning flashes, revealing a farmhouse about a mile away, further down the hill.
We're a mile out. Stay by me.
The thunder hits like a shock wave. The sheep shriek and grind to a halt.
No, forward!
Another flash of lightning, revealing a face in the clouds, a giant's face. Ethereal. Arthur is awestruck. The thunder washes over him. He is paralyzed. Prolap. Bam, 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 bam. Interior, Shepard's home, night. Maud Shepard, 28, hammers nails into a plank. Bam, bam, bam. Barricading the windows from the storm. The sound of wind and rain is deafening. A hatching ladder to the upstairs bursts open. Denny, 11, shrieks as his entrance is punctuated by a torrent of rainwater spilling into the downstairs.
Denny! I told you to fix it!
She's gone! She's gone!
Upstairs, Maud climbs up the last rungs of the ladder and coughs as a wave of water submerges her head for a moment. Through strands of hair in her eyes, she spots a window slamming open and shut from the ceaseless wind, waves and waves of water pouring through like a pulse. She sticks her head out the window and, with another flash of lightning and a thunderclap, sees her daughter, Brayla, 8, struggling against the wind towards the hill in the distance. Exterior, Shepard's farm, night. Maud scoops up Brayla, stumbling from a blast of wind.
How could you be so stupid?
Daddy!
The girl points to the top of the hill.
Run home, as fast as you can. Run!
Brayla runs. Maud's face goes dark, determined. Exterior, Drovers Road, night. Sander pulls at Arthur's pant leg, spraying water everywhere. Arthur shudders, woken from his trance. He prods at the nearest sheep with his crook.
Move! Move!
He clambers up the side of the muddy road, slipping and sliding and tumbling until he's higher up with a better vantage point, looking over his entire flock. And there at the front, Maud physically grabbing the sheep and pulling them along.
Maud!
She looks up, a wild grin on her face. Exterior, Shepard's farm, night. As the storm rages, Maud, Arthur, and Sander herd the flock into their enormous pen. Arthur and Maud direct the sheep from the back and the front. Sander sprints along the sides, barking and collecting the stragglers. The last of the sheep scamper into the farmhouse. Arthur slams the door. Interior, Shepard's home, night. Maud, Arthur, Denny, and Brayla sit under blankets by a fire, drying off. Sander sleeps. Maud leans on Arthur's shoulder. She breathes a sigh of relief and of affection. Interior, Shepard's home, day. A clear day, sun shining through the gaps in the barricaded windows. A knock at the door. Arthur answers. It's a royal messenger, solemn. He passes Arthur a scroll. Conscription by decree of Lord Neville. He stares at the scroll for a long time, barely registering. When he looks up, the messenger is gone. He closes the door, hand shaking, eyes wide. He slumps to the ground in defeat. Prelap, the shriek of a dying lamb. Exterior, coastal cliff, day. Arthur climbs to the edge of a cliff face. The ocean roars beneath them, and carried with the blustering wind and raging sounds of waves on rocks, the cry of a lamb. The lamb's leg is caught in a mass of roots snaking out of the cliff face. The lamb dangles over the edge. It baws helplessly as the wind rocks it back and forth. Arthur observes the lamb. pulls out his conscription papers. The wind threatens to rip them out of his grasp. The lamb cries for help. He shoves the papers in his pocket and attends to the lamb. Examines its leg. The only thing keeping the lamb from tumbling at the waves below is the root system wrapped around its ankle. He begins to untie the roots, but the lamb shrieks in pain and kicks out wildly. Its leg is utterly broken. Its face is bloodied and battered from the rocks. Its cries grow weak. Arthur draws a knife, saws through the roots. The lamb drops. Arthur pulls out his papers again. As the lamb screams are swallowed by the waves, he rolls up the papers and turns back to his farm. Interior, shepherd's home, day. Arthur holds Maud tight as she sobs. Interior, shepherd's farm, day. Arthur helps Denny shear a fat old sheep.
Easy there. Let the shears do the work for you.
It's hard.
That's what makes it rewarding.
Exterior, shepherd's paddock, day. Arthur jogs alongside a mule. Brayla struggles to control the mule. She shouts from its back.
Can I try the horses now?
Brayla, we don't have any horses.
What about at Samantha's?
You'll have to ask nicely.
Brayla smiles. Interior, shepherd's home, night. Arthur wrestles with Sander, pretends to lose. Sander prances off, proud of himself. Maud beckons Arthur up the stairs. In the bedroom, Arthur and Maud fuck. Fade 2. Arthur lies in bed, wide awake, staring at Maud's sleeping face. Interior, infantry tent, day, a cold cot. A gruff sergeant shakes Arthur awake. Interior, butcher's shop, day. A line of peasants. They shuffle forward, each handed a spear and a kettle helm. The sergeant pushes bloody hooks and misplaced tools out of the way.
We got 10,000 men just like you, and we can't train them all in a beautiful pasture. The local butcher has kindly vacated the premises for our war efforts. Now, tell me, who do you fight for?
His attempt to rile him up with nationalistic fervor is met only with a few grumbled replies of Lord Neville.
Lord Neville. You fight for Lord Neville.
Cut 2. The men practice spearing pig carcasses hanging from hooks. Arthur waits his turn. The man beside him lifts up his ill-fitting helmet to see better. This is Peter Carrier, a portly man of 35.
Arthur!
Peter, how's Samantha?
A hint of regret.
We must talk later. You're up.
Arthur is awkwardly pushed forward to the pig carcasses. It's a pockmarked with spear holes. He lunges, poor form, and strikes a weak hit. Arthur cringes. Exterior, town, day. The town is spookily empty save for the military trainees. Peter and Arthur talk softly as they shuffle along with the crowd.
With the mother passed, I don't know how Samantha will do. She's been hanging around that halfling boy in town, and I just needed to think of her little brothers. There's no one but her to tend to the farm. She can't leave them, not like I left them.
Brayla wants to visit.
She'd like that.
Do you hear that shrieking?
They strain to listen through the crowd.
A goat? Maybe a sheep?
That's no sheep.
As they push to the front of the crowd, they finally get a glimpse of what's making the horrible shrieking. A goblin tied to a stake driven through a patch of earth. The creature is all sharp points and angles. The noise it makes is unbearable. The sergeant climbs to the top of the city square fountain, where his voice can boom across the top of the crowd.
We're on a time pressure to get you commoners out on the field of battle. When you can silence this goblin from 100 paces, you'll be considered ready for war.
What did
Peter
he call it?
whispers to Arthur, nearly drowned out by all the other people also furiously whispering to each other.
What did he call it?
I didn't hear.
An industrious young soldier takes a running start, pushing past Arthur and Peter, and launches his spear across the town square. Clang. Skids off the ground, nowhere near the goblin.
We've got work to do.
Montage. Days go by. Soldiers rip apart the pig carcass with their spears. Soldiers struggle to sleep on uncomfortable cots. Soldiers, one by one, chuck their spears at the goblin. Clang, clang, clang. Arthur feebly strikes the pig carcass. Peter chucks his spear at the goblin. Wide miss. Clang. A soldier marks down another tick in a rising tally labeled Days Gone By. Peter's spear breaks on a pig carcass. Soldiers chuck spears at the goblin. No order to it now. Desperation. Cling, cling, cling. Arthur watches as the sergeant feeds the goblin dead rats. Another day, a rising tally. Interior, town square, days later. Arthur winds up and chucks his spear at the goblin. Cling. But just as he turns to leave in disappointment, another soldier pushes him aside and performs a brilliant throw. The spear catches the goblin in the leg. Green blood sprays. The goblin screams and cries. Arthur pats the soldier on the back, but he's distracted. He watches as a cleric, a tall, hard-featured woman in red and white robes over heavy armor, gently removes the spear from the goblin's leg and heals its wound with a touch and a whispered prayer. Arthur is horrified. Interior, infantry tent day. The sergeant marches past exhausted men.
Only one of you has managed to throw a spear straight. If you think you're getting another chance to prove yourself, you're wrong. Time's up. Get moving.
Arthur pulls Peter up to join the crowd of identical peasant soldiers. Exterior, Misty Lake Valley, day. Soldiers led across the lakeside road. Mountain knights herd them on either side, funneling them in like sheep. The sun sets and rises and sets and rises, and Peter shaves his beard with a razor-sharp knife, using the placid lake as a mirror. He turns to Arthur.
You're keeping it.
Arthur rubs his beard. It's grown a lot. Very scruffy. Exterior, Misty Lake Pass, day. The crowd is packed tight into a narrow pass. Arthur and Peter are jostled around in the thick of things. Can't see anything. Shouting and screams from up ahead.
What's going on?
A tall soldier vaults up on Arthur's shoulders.
They're killing us.
He scrambles back as we catch glimpses of a powerful swinging maul and the flash of a fireball. The tall soldier collapses backwards, clutching at his stinging eyes. From up ahead, much closer to the threat, a distinct cry above the rest.
Keep pushing. There's only 4 of them. Keep pushing.
Peter grabs Arthur, freaking out.
What did he say? 4 of them? 4 of them?
Push!
The crowd surges forward. The screams of dying men are overwhelmed by the battle cries of the living. Fade 2. The soldiers march on. Arthur spots glimpses of bodies underfoot. Magnificent robes stained with blood, shining armor crushed to a pulp. Dozens of corpses of soldiers that look just like him. The sergeant, dead, trampled. Exterior, burning forest, night. The army makes camp on a grassy hill while soldiers set bonfires under trees a safe distance away. Arthur and Peter enjoy sloppy rations by the flickering orange light. A scrawny soldier, no more than 18, leans over.
Did you hear? Lord Neville is dead.
Oh, gods.
He was assassinated.
Do we get to go home?
What happened?
All over the camp, similar hushed conversations can be heard. A few soldiers join in with Arthur and Peter. A burly soldier pipes up.
I heard he was killed by the drow.
It was a druid.
A drow druid.
The drow have druids.
What's a drow?
It's like a dark elf.
What's an elf?
Reckon the druid turned into a spider, snuck into his tent.
Turned into a bigger spider, ate him.
No, he was poisoned.
Spiders have poison.
Spiders have venom.
Are we fighting giant spiders?
They are interrupted by a towering nobleman on a horse.
With the death of your lord, you are under command of Duchess Malana.
A pause. They give each other glances. Who's that?
By her command, you and your compatriots are to report at the beaches of Nentlen across the storming seas. You will take these beaches for Duchess and await further orders.
They all look around. It is difficult to be further from a beach. Exterior, Port Town, day. Thousands of soldiers herded onto massive medieval military ships. Arthur and Peter, as always, are jostled in the thick of the crowd. Peter is clean-shaven, but Arthur's beard is thick. It's grown past his collarbone. Exterior, the storming seas, day. Clear weather, still waters. The ship glides effortlessly across the ocean. Interior, ship hold, day. Soldiers lounging in hammocks strewn about. Arthur reviews his belongings. Common clothes, a kettle helm, a worn-out spear. That's it. He's unsatisfied. His beard has grown much longer. Exterior, ship deck, day. Arthur and Peter help manage restless dogs. Peter clips their nails while Arthur uses body language and soothing noises to calm them. The deck crawls with sailors and soldiers, but one person stands apart from the others, a man in a blue robe laced with gold that flaps in a wind that isn't there. He is deep in a bombastic ritual. Arthur grabs a nearby sailor's attention.
Who's that?
That's our Tempest Cleric. Ships can't cross through the storming seas without one.
Is that why...
That's why we got clear skies and a favorable wind. Otherwise, we'd be at the bottom of the sea.
Arthur watches the Tempest Cleric with fear and fascination. Prelap, a rising crescendo of waves. Exterior, Gallows Beach, day. Soldiers screaming, leaping off the ship into shallow water. Already dozens of identical boots and thousands of identical soldiers. Arthur, even Longerbeard, and Peter leap off their ship. They are insignificant amidst the vast army. At the hills where the sand turns to grass, columns and columns of enemy archers release arrows. The first row of soldiers is wiped out by a rain of arrows. Arthur and Peter are in the third row. Arthur spots fighting at the highest point of the beach. Not two armors clashing, but two people. A man in shining angelic armor, a paladin, fights a small woman dressed in leaves, a druid. Every hit releases a burst of blinding magical energy. Arthur has to shout above the hubbub of rushing soldiers.
Who are they?
I don't know.
They huff, barely keeping up, their boots sinking in sand. The second row of soldiers falls to a second rain of arrows. Arthur's attention is elsewhere. The druid's neck snaps back and her whole body twists and turns in a rotten transformation, exploding into a triceratops. She smashes the paladin with her horns. The paladin somehow holds his ground.
Which one is with us?
I don't know. Maybe they're...
Before Peter can finish that thought, an arrow plunges into his neck. Another arrow smashes Arthur's helm. Peter drops gurgling, bleeding. Arthur recovers, dented. Peter's corpse is trampled by the next row of soldiers. Arthur is pushed forward with the tide. No time to grieve. The soldiers are close enough to chuck spears, and they do, all in a huge group, and Arthur yells and blindly throws his spear, losing it in the cloud of spears. He quickly yanks a short sword from a corpse. The army breaks through the line of archers, deafening screams. Exterior, Salt Flats, day. A royal courtier rides down the army lines as they cross a massive salt flat, headed towards a towering spine of mountains in the distance. The courtier squints from the harsh sunlight and shouts,
You have been traded to Lady Alsace of Wind to join her assault on Mount Augur. March onward for the glory of battle.
Arthur steps in front of the horse. The courtier rears back, disgusted, perhaps by Arthur's long, unkempt beard.
Traded for what?
Excuse me?
What did Duchess Milena receive in exchange for her armies?
Who is Duchess Milena?
What were we traded for?
I don't know.
Interior, Dwarven Mines, night. Arthur struggles to see in dim torchlight. Ordinary screams matched with gruff roars of pain. It's too packed and too dark for Arthur to see the front lines in such a cramped space. Interior, Dwarven Camp, night. Underground, animal dung makes smokeless bonfires. Soldiers eat cruel, unrecognizable faces. Several dwarves are held captive, tied to stakes like the goblin from before. Arthur approaches the dwarf wearing a beautiful knitted scarf.
You know Lady Alsace of the Wind?
Aye, a human lass what thinks these mountains ain't their home. I like your beard, lad.
Arthur touches his beard. It's even longer and thicker than the dwarves.
Why are you asking about the lass what set you here, eh?
Arthur is caught off guard and doesn't know how to answer.
You one of those sellswords? We've been fighting an army of sellswords. Good dwarves, strong dwarves. We die for our home, for our honor. You die for nothing.
The word nothing paralyzes Arthur.
You ain't got no conviction. You want to see conviction?
Arthur takes a step back, but it's too late. The dwarf rips out the stake he's tied to, dislocates his shoulder, uses the stake as a club. Arthur yanks up his sword barely in time. Crack! The sword snaps in half, and the dwarf foams at the mouth and tail. Splut. Another soldier stabs a spear through the dwarf's chest, spraying Arthur with blood. Arthur scrambles back, shaken.
Keep moving. Keep moving.
Exterior, blasted heath day. Misty and gray, dead bushes, burned trees, scorched earth. The army, thin and spread out, trudges cautiously across the battlefield. Arthur keeps to himself, brandishing his broken short sword. A flicker of movement ahead. Arthur falls back, frightened. A soft blast of light from up ahead through the fog, silent. The soldier next to Arthur shivers and then flails helplessly as a spectral hand crawls up his neck. The flesh rots from the soldier's bone, revealing skull. Arthur screams. He stumbles back into another soldier whose face drips with caustic acid. All around them, magical effects explode from the mist. A blast of wind punctures the fog and reveals a figure. An evoker. Green and black robes, face hidden by a long hood, hands crackling with violet fire. Arthur sprints away. He's the only one not caught by a paralyzing hypnotic pattern. Soldiers freeze in their tracks, mesmerized by the lights, until the evoker points at them and his ethereal violet flames erupt out them, conglomerating into a single bright pink point in the center of the group where it explodes into a searing white fireball, incinerating them. Several soldiers regroup and charge the wizard, but from the shadows, from nothing, steps a woman wrapped tight in black wraps, a shadow monk. She swoops up the soldiers, every movement leaving a shadowy trail, and breaks their necks one by one in the series of lightning-fast strikes. The evoker sends a blast of freezing ice straight over her head as she goes low. The ice strikes another soldier before he can stab the monk. His skin turns black with frostbite. Arthur's frantic sprinting propels him forward, losing his footing into an open grave. He lands face to face with a long-dead, rotten corpse infested with bugs. He lies perfectly still, even as the bugs crawl over him. He closes his eyes. The battle rages above him. Blood-curdling screams. Fade 2, hours later. Arthur shakes off the bugs, brushes himself off, picks up his broken short sword and his helmet, shudders, climbs out of the grave, stunned at the sight of the battlefield. Strewn with corpses, all soldiers indistinguishable from his own appearance. Same armor, same weapons, even in some cases almost exactly the same face. He finds a spear jammed in a dead tree. He pulls on it. It's not in the tree, it's in a body which slides out of the shadows. The shadow monk. Her name is Nella. She gasps, she coughs, she's alive. Arthur raises his broken sword to strike, but...
Nonsense. I'm done.
She paws at the spear in her chest. Her black wraps are stained red and brown. Every little movement she makes sends a layer of goopy red blood over the layer beneath.
Wizards, fickle breed. You care about you so long that as long as you're useful.
Can you tell me?
He hesitates. She coughs.
Tell you what, sellsword.
I'm not a sellsword. I'm a shepherd.
She gives him a mirthless grin.
Where are you from, shepherd? And what do you want to ask me?
What are you fighting for?
You don't know?
He shakes his head. She gasps in disbelief.
Etheriax and I killed 4 dozen of you, and you don't know why.
Otsland.
What was that?
I'm from Otsland. You asked me where I'm from.
She laughs so hard she coughs blood.
Sit with me.
He does. He flops down beside her. She grabs his hand and squeezes.
Otsland, you know that's half a world away.
Arthur nods sadly.
Commoners, all of you, brought and traded into commerce of war, beaten and broken and herded into line. And by luck, you're the last one to meet your fate.
Arthur leans his head against the tree.
You've given everything to a cause you don't believe in. And in return, you have nothing to your name but a broken sword and a dented helm. Take the advice of a dying woman. Get yourself a ship.
She coughs.
Think of home.
Arthur gently sings a folk song from his youth. The monk closes her eyes, breathing ragged.
Attaboy.
They sit there for a long time, holding hands, singing. Her breathing stops. Arthur musters the willpower to rise, lays the monk down, folds her arm over her mangled body, straps his sword to his belt, reaffixes his helmet. Behind him, glimpses of soldiers shouting, gagging at the carnage, calling out to anyone who might be alive. Arthur turns away, and he disappears into the mist. Fade 2. Superimposed. 1 summer later. Exterior, Intercoast, day. A beautiful coastal city gleaming in the rising sun. A bard strums a magic lute in the town square. His music carries over vignettes. Towering masts of ships knocking together in the harbor above, turning crowds of well-dressed nobles. Guards stand watch at the gates of a chateau, barely better dressed than the homeless around them, gazing wistfully at those towering masts in the distance. A marketplace, a melting pot of humans and halflings and dwarves, 1,000 colors of skin, fabric, food, and trinkets from 150 different nations. An elven tourist turns her head at the sound of a crying baby from a dark alleyway. Her husband urges her along, and we pull away into the alleyway to reveal a humanoid raven man twisting his beak to mimic a baby's cry. And we move past the mimicking raven man towards a dingy inn sign hidden in the blackness of the alley. Ye Crowning Inn. Crowning Inn. From flickering candlelight in a top-floor window, we hear Prelap. Bah. Ah. Interior, the Crowning Inn, worst room, day. A lamb of golden fleece, thrashing and leaping all over the shitty little room. Crash! Down comes an end table. Candles scatter all over the floor, spraying hot wax. The end table crumbles into lumber. A man rushes to put out the small fire. He is John the Grey, a stocky 65-year-old human in thick leather armor, massive magical bracers and the style of a tree trunk, a thick, well-groomed gray beard. A second man rushes to grab the lamb. He is Sir Bremen, 30, heavy chainmail covered by a forest-themed cloak. His hood falls over his shoulders to reveal his pointed ears. The staff on his back bangs against the wall. Sir Bremen puts the lamb in a headlock. She kicks like a piston, bashes his nose. Blood. He yelps and she escapes, smashing into walls, ripping bedsheets with her teeth, kicking a backpack across the room. John swipes at her, but she squirms out of his grasp. He motions to Sir Bremen, calm her down. Sir Bremen's face is wild and bleeding.
I'm not some druid!
He gets to his feet, tries to predict the lamb's random movements, scowls, hesitates, gives up.
You know my skills. You know what I can do. This is not my expertise.
He touches his nose, heals the break with a flash of white light, wipes the blood with his sleeve. John peers out the window. The room has a clear view to the walls at the edge of the city. He stares with intent, then slides shut the drapes. Sir Bremen dodges a flying book. Pages ruffle and scatter all around him like butterflies.
What do? We find a smuggler. Do you still have the contacts from your shore leave?
John nods. The lamb rips the bedsheets into shreds, sending feathers and fabric flying.
How do I know I can trust you?
John just glares. Sir Bremen clenches his jaw, bites the lip, and relents.
Who've you got in mind?
Exterior, noble estate, night. An opulent mansion. A shadowy figure approaches from shadow, a halfling woman in a black cloak. She reviews a sketch of a valuable antique. Tired guards barely pay attention. She slips past the guards at the gate, vaults over the fence, lets loose a magic illusion, sending guards after rustling in the bushes. She keeps low and advances to a side door. 2 guards keep watch, helmets obscuring their faces, ill-fitting armor, awkwardly big-speared. The woman grabs one guard and smashes his head against the wall. Wham! The second guard startles and waves his spear, but she removes her hood. Haley Atwise is a 34-year-old, 3-foot-tall smuggler with long, bright red hair, a permanent smirk, and eyes full of life.
You are sleeping on the job again, isn't that right, Arthur?
A moment's hesitation. The guard pulls his spear away, props it up against the wall, takes off his helmet. It's Arthur. Arthur is tired. Months have passed. His beard is longer, but at least now it's well kept and hides his gaunt features.
I can't keep letting you in.
A guard salary gets you home in a year and a half. I get you home before autumn.
25 silver. Tonight.
Or I could just knock you out.
How about a drink?
Whiskey, none of that cheap stuff, eh?
28. And you get a whiskey and the door.
Deal.
She counts out some coins, thrusts a sack of change into his hands. Arthur unlocks the door and motions her inside.
Tell him it was the gnomes again.
Dastardly, the lot of them.
He hefts the coin pouch, weighty, satisfying. Interior, guardhouse, night. Arthur waits in a long line of identical guards, hands in a report. Collects his payment, a small pouch of coins. He gives his new pouch a toss, papery, weak, insufficient. Feels like it could blow away in a light breeze. Exterior, city streets, day. The rain threatens to stab through Arthur's cloak, stinging and cold and relentless. He brushes past unsavory folk, heads into the warm glow of Interior Three-Horned Tavern Day. A popular drinking hole for unsavory folk, Haley regales a table of dwarves with a tale of swashbucklery. She lights up when she sees Arthur.
There you are, my favorite nobody. Barman, I'm owed a drink.
Two cloaked figures look up from a table in the back. They are surrounded by other dark, mysterious cloaked figures. They're the only ones who aren't drowning their sorrows. Arthur chucks the barman a silver coin. John and Sir Bremen approach Haley, each coming at a different side, a pincer movement. Haley spots them bearing down on her out of the corner of her eye. Fight or flight. Danger, danger, danger.
Miss Haley Artwise.
Arthur returns to her table only to find her escaping. She dashes to the door. John gets there first, blocks her exit. She's got a knife, stabbing, digging into the tough leather of his shirt, not breaking skin. She pulls back. Sir Bremen measures his frustration.
Miss Atwise, we just want to talk.
You work for the city?
Gods, no. No! We need to escape from the city.
I don't know you. Touch me and I'll pluck out your nails.
John smiles. He nods to Sir Bremen. It's her. Cut to. They sit at a table together. Calmer, they each chug down a flagon of ale. Arthur sits beside Haley, not really sure what's going on. He eyes Sir Bremen warily. Sir Bremen is an enormous rhino of a man. Haley wipes her lip.
Mr. Bremen, is it?
Sir Bremen.
You're a knight.
Paladin of the Ancient Order. You must remember John, don't you?
Haley eyes John up and down. Recognition, a long-lost memory.
Weren't your whole battalion wiped out a decade ago?
John nods, sadness.
You've been wandering the world doing good, and I've done nothing but smuggle and steal, and the world's still the same to me.
We have a proposition for you. More than a job. Weeks of travel, danger, fighting, and at the end, we save the world.
Her disposition sours. She gets out of her seat.
Miss Atwise, sit down. Sit down!
I'm not risking my life on some grandiose mission for a paladin.
She goes for the door, but she hears something, fluttering of paper, a gruff cough. Old, tired. Haley clenches her fist. Something makes her change her mind. She turns around. John unrolls a scrap of fabric on the table. A blue pirate's flag. Haley wanders back to the table. Can't take her eyes off the flag. She sits down.
Where is it?
Gallowstown Harbor. Pick up. Gallowstown Harbor. Up for auction. It's yours if you can scrounge up a bid.
Or if I steal it.
I'd prefer if you didn't.
Oh, but I'll steal it real gentle.
She finally looks up at him.
So, business. What do you need smuggled out of the city?
A lamb of golden fleece.
For the entire conversation, Arthur has been sitting awkwardly at the table, not speaking, barely paying attention at all to the proceedings. But at this, he perks up.
Fair enough. Who's our party?
Just us.
Where are you going?
Everyone looks at him. It's clear they didn't realize he was sitting there.
Know where you need to know. What's your name?
Arthur.
Profession?
He's a guard.
Looks like a soldier.
I'm a shepherd.
A long, drawn-out silence. Sir Bremen looks at John. John gives him a look of encouragement, but...
No, we'll be fine.
Where are you going? How far?
I don't know, very far. Months of travel. A long, arduous journey.
This appeals to Arthur. He gets more excited.
You have a lamb in search of a shepherd, and I'm a shepherd in search of a long and arduous journey.
Sir Bremen looks to John. Encouragement and a smile. Looks to Haley. A sly, mischievous grin. Looks to Arthur. Hope. Sir Bremen huffs.
Bags packed.
Moment's notice.
Interior, Arthur's flat. Night. Arthur's flat is barely bigger than a closet. His bed doesn't quite fit between the walls and lumps up uncomfortably. Cockroaches skitter under his feet. Clotheslines trail out of the window, fluttering in the night's breeze. Haley leans against the door, idly playing with a lockpick.
I'd never lie to you, so when I say you've gotten the worst flat I've ever seen, you'd best believe it.
Arthur straps on his backpack, adjusts to the weight.
Damned be the army. Damned be this city. Damned be this flat, and I'm ready to go home.
You'll be home in the shake of a lamb's tail.
Interior, the Crowning Inn, dingy hallway, day. Sir Bremen, John, Haley, and Arthur approach the worst room through the hallway where tiny windows pour a smidgen of light across moldy floorboards. Dust flutters. John raises his hand. Something's wrong. Motions for the others to stay back. He presses himself against the door, listening, concentrating. Then, smash through the door. Interior, the worst room. A room blown to pieces. Not just the lamb's usual destructiveness. Ethereal green fire licks at the edges of the cabinets before fizzling out. Blood seeps through the cheap floors. Next to the window, a dead goblin. Face burned, blackened. The window has been smashed. John clenches his fists. Crack. A magical halberd appears in his hands, glowing green, twisting with vines. The others rush into the room. Sir Bremen boils with anger.
Find her!
Exterior, Raven's Alley. Day, a bleeding lamb in distress. Haley is frantic.
Don't let them take her to the market. There's too many people.
They won't get far.
Sir Bremen draws his quarterstaff, sprints down the alley, rounds a corner to see a raven man, mimicking the sounds of a bleeding lamb with his weird little beak. Sir Bremen grabs the raven man, hoists him high.
Where'd they go?
The raven man points down the alley, where the darkness gives way to the crowds in the market. Exterior, marketplace, day. Melting pot of cultures, all screaming and running. In the middle of the market, unsuccessfully trying to drag the screaming, bleeding lamb against its will, are goblins. Horrible, screeching, green, 3-foot-tall monsters with needle teeth and jagged swords. They leap and bound and lash out with quick strikes at bystanders, catching an old woman in the leg, her grandson in the arm, shallow cuts. Sir Bremen roars and charges, pushing away crowds of people indiscriminately. A young woman is knocked to the ground. Her husband spins into a punch, but Sir Bremen is too fast. A goblin stands to block Sir Bremen. He bashes it in the head with his quarterstaff. The hit releases a burst of searing sunlight. The goblin collapses. More of them surround Sir Bremen, striking him with their little swords, but his armor glows bright white and their blades careen off harmlessly. 3 of them hoist the lamb above their heads and make a break for it. Vines explode up from the cracks beneath the cobblestones. Wrapped in the vines is John. They skid to a halt, but not fast enough. John's halberd bisects a goblin, decapitates another, their body parts flailing in horrible places across the marketplace. Screaming women and children, horror. The last goblin falls to its knees, pleads for its life. Sir Bremen calls out to John, serious.
It's just a goblin.
John splits the goblin in two before Sir Bremen can finish.
Good.
John's halberd evaporates in a wisp of green smoke. He kneels down to the lamb. She quivers, bites his hand as he reaches for her. Haley looks around at the horrified crowds. They're exposed.
We gotta go.
Sir Bremen goes for the lamb, but she skips back, hissing and spitting and gnashing her teeth. Haley spots armored figures pushing through the crowd.
Guards, let's go. Let's go.
For the sake of gods, lamb, I saved your life.
Don't speak to her like that.
Sir Bremen gives Arthur an incredulous look. Arthur approaches the lamb. His body language is deliberate, practiced, experienced. The lamb bristles, but lets him get close. Arthur gently takes a bag of apples from a nearby market stall, spills the apples onto the ground, keeps only one, takes a bite, offers the rest to the lamb. The lamb nearly bites his fingers off, but accepts the apple. Quick as lightning, Arthur wraps her head in the apple bag. She shrieks and bleats and thrashes, but Arthur holds her, wrestles her, gets her into position, moves her legs away from him, sits her down, and realizing that she can't move, can't break free, she relaxes. A beat.
Whoa.
6 guards push their way into the opening, gag at the dismembered goblin corpses, approach with caution, hiding behind shields, keeping their spears out defensively. Sir Bremen brandishes his quarterstaff.
They wouldn't pose a challenge.
John grabs his shoulder, gives him a look. Don't you dare. They hurry away. Exterior, city walls, day. They duck into the shadows behind a horse-drawn wagon. The driver smokes a pipe on his break. Gives them a weird look, but doesn't question their presence.
I reckon we split up. John, Sir Bremen, you throw them off, lead them around the city, get out when you're able. Arthur and I'll take the lamb through the sewers. Meet you at the crossroads at midday.
Sir Bremen scowls at the proposition. John again puts a hand on his shoulder, an encouraging smile. Trust them. Trust me. Sir Bremen sighs. They split up. John and Arthur share a look as they pull away. They are wearing the same helmet. John touches the rivets on the side of his helmet. The helm is old and is a little bit rusted. He gives Arthur a look of embarrassment and understanding. The lamb squirms. She lets out a interior sewers day. Bah! As Arthur covers her head with a linen bag, she lets out a few more thrashes and kicks before giving up. Silence. The sewer is dark with shafts of light shining from manholes to the streets above. Occasionally, garbage trickles down into a river of excrement. Haley removes her cape, bundles it up to fit in her backpack.
Ugh, all my clothes are gonna stink like a troglodyte after this.
They trek through the city's sewer systems, keeping to the walkways on either side of the river.
You haven't patrolled this place?
I don't think we get paid enough for that.
Exactly.
Something scuttles up ahead. Arthur tenses up.
Of course, that means it's a hotspot for criminal undergoings. Some say a beast of 1,000 eyes rules the Thieves' Guild from the coastal caves beneath.
I know. I've heard.
The scuttling gets worse.
Smugglers don't usually go through these parts. The risk isn't worth it. But we're willing to risk it, aren't we?
Arthur is unsure.
At best, we'll run into some thugs demanding their pound of flesh. I can handle a thug or two.
I can't.
You were a soldier.
Not a very good one.
This way.
They turn right at a T-junction to see a makeshift village. Planks of wood and simple tented structures from a bridge across the river of excrement. Dead bodies hang off the edges, stabbed to death. Many with arms ripped clean out of their sockets. Women and men, former thieves, former thugs. Haley and Arthur look at each other, donning horror and understanding across their faces, before they both see 3 goblins, 1 bugbear, bright green and orange skin contrasting with the grays and dull browns of the sewer. Bugbears are orange, hairy, ape-like, an overgrown goblin with arms so long they drag across its knees. The bugbear roars from behind Arthur and Haley. 8 more goblins far away, scrambling along the edges of the wall, whooping and hollering. And something more, something that glows a bright cyan, a ghostly bauble of light. Haley is more afraid of the ghostly bauble than the goblins. She draws a short bow. Arthur draws his short sword.
Push past them! Don't let the will-o-wisp get close!
Gods.
I'll cover you!
Arthur scrambles into action, nearly tripping over his own feet as one goblin pounds ahead of the others and leaps. The whack takes an arrow to the face, goes limp midair, slams to the side of the walkway before slipping into the river. Splash. Arthur, emboldened, rushes another goblin, wildly slashes his short sword. It leaps out of the way in horror. Arthur catches its legs. Slash. It crawls away along the wooden planks, hides in a tent. An arrow slams into the third goblin, instantly dead. Haley peeks behind her. The others are closing in. She dashes to catch up with Arthur at a blinding speed and grace. The bugbear grabs the dead goblin and wields it like a club, and Arthur barely dodges in time. Haley doesn't draw another arrow, instead going for her dagger. Arthur thrusts his broken sword up against the bugbear's belly, barely breaking skin. It grabs Arthur's arm, squeezes, grinning with tombstones for teeth. Haley slashes off its hand. It screams. Haley slams her full body weight into the bugbear, and as it steps back to steady itself, finds empty air where it expected solid ground, and tumbles into the river. Shrieking and thrashing as human waste painfully soaks into its open wounds. Arthur pauses in a moment of sympathy, but Haley drags him along, pulling him for a moment, then firing another arrow at the pursuing goblins. And more shining baubles, many colors, fluctuating in brightness and intensity as they draw closer. The lamb screams. Arthur yells. They dash through the sewers. Haley pings the goblins one by one until the rest hang back, shrieking and scowling and hollering and hissing. And Arthur narrows his eyes with one last look, seeing something that doesn't make sense. The goblins and the will-o-wisps fight each other, blades versus crackling lightning. His observations forgotten as he sprints to the light. Exterior, crossroads, day, blinding sunlight. At first, we only hear panting and hyperventilating. Then, Arthur's face, sweating bullets, Haley's face, shook up just like Arthur. The lamb, head now uncovered, glassy-eyed, tired. They trudge, exhausted, towards a crossroad market post between 2 flat inland roads. Farmers sell their wares and fruits and vegetables, kiosks. Ordinary folk.
What were those things? Wisps?
Oh, will-o-wisps, the souls of murdered fairies. I've never seen so many. Don't think about it.
Haley flips the silver coin to a salesman near a wall. He yanks on a rope to pull up a bucket of water. Cut to. Haley and Arthur sit in the shade on the outside of a rusting tent, sharing sips of a water skin. The lamb sleeps soundly at Arthur's feet.
Are you going to give her a name?
Arthur is taken aback.
John tells me she doesn't have a name. Would you do the honors?
Brayla.
The name of his daughter. He watches the lamb sleep, sadness on his face, but also hope.
That's a nice name.
Thank you. Thank you.
Approaching footsteps, Haley palms her dagger. From around the tent emerges John and Sir Bremen. Haley smiles.
You know I raise my rates if you keep me waiting.
You smell like death. Good to see the lamb is safe.
Arthur's got a gift.
Arthur smiles. He fondly pats Brayla.
Are we on foot from here?
Sir Bremen huffs, almost insulted at the thought.
I hired a carriage.
You seem to have a lot of financial backing.
My pedigree carries weight.
So does a workhorse. Let's see this carriage.
Pre-lap. Wooden wheels on a dirt road. Exterior, forest road, day. The carriage is drawn by 2 white horses. The driver is a middle-aged human woman with facial scars from a battle long forgotten. She calls out.
You'll keep that loud mouth from frightening the horses.
A devastated, bleeding lamb. Interior, carriage, day. Arthur soothes Brayla, feeds her some grain. He's got her in a position where it's awkward for her to move around, legs splayed out in front of her. She stays still, goes silent. The interior of the carriage is magnificent, the walls lined with velvet red. Haley sits beside Arthur. She nudges John across from her.
Is the driver another one of your old war buddies?
One of mine.
Haley looks at him, newfound curiosity.
Huh. I thought the Order of the Ancients kept themselves cooped up in a treehouse all day.
I bested the Orc Chief in the fields of Moimar. Civilization owes me its gratitude.
Yeah, we all got a marketable talent. I steal, you kill. Where exactly are we heading? The Grove?
John dismisses this notion with a wave of his bracers. Sir Bremen agrees.
We have one more stop. Do you know where we're fighting? Who we're fighting? Do you know of which god the lamb is a symbol?
Not much of an expert.
Sir Bremen opens his mouth, but John quiets him, leans forward, motions for Haley to lean close. John speaks, barely above a whisper. Old, tired, defeated.
Lord calls of the litter and the peat.
A moment of venerance. Haley is horrified.
Who?
Everyone looks at Arthur. With all eyes on him, he retreats back.
The last time I was pulled into fighting for someone else, I didn't even know what I was fighting for.
John's gaze goes sympathetic. A tense moment.
Good. Then you're accustomed to it.
Arthur frowns, burning with frustration and anger. But he sizes up Sir Bremen. A confrontation wouldn't be worth it.
We'll rest up for the night, eh? Words flow more fluidly with ale.
Exterior, coastal road, night. They drink together on the side of the road, legs dangling off the edge of the cliff. Horses whining, tacked up to the side of a tree. Carriage propped up next to the cliffs, overlooking the last of the sunset over sparkling ocean. Twilight sky dotted with 10,000 unfamiliar stars. Arthur watches the masts of tall ships in the distance, sailing out in orderly lines along the horizon, silhouetted by the fading orange clouds. He is drawn to the ships. He reaches out. Haley presses a flask into his hand, slaps him on the back.
Faithful crew with a fortune in our cargo and a city left behind. Share with us your stories. Tell me when everyone believed you a liar when you were telling the truth.
I need a minute to think.
When I was younger, I played with this gnome girl, Witwicky Ann. She could create the most wonderful illusions. One day I tried, and it worked. And nobody believed me. So I practiced in secret for years just to prove them wrong.
She clenches her fist, mutters an incantation, and, almost embarrassed, opens her palm. 4 multicolored lights float up and bathe the cliff in a dim glow of primary colors. She closes her hand and the lights snuff out. Sir Bremen knocks back a shot, then another.
I could feel the evil radiating off of him like a sunburn. I told my mother to watch out. I told her to cast him away. But he was rich. He would help us restore the greatness of our family. So she said.
He pauses, thinks deep.
She didn't last long. My family still thought of me as a liar, even when I challenged him to death. And when he lay genuflect before me, they begged me, my own brothers and sisters, flesh and blood, to spare the man who killed our mother. I tore out his spine, and I left my ungrateful siblings to what remained of our estate.
A very long silence. Water laps at the rocks below.
I'm tired. Good night.
Sir Bremen leaves. Everyone looks down, awkward.
I'll take the first watch.
Arthur lies on the soft ground, staring upwards at the sky. Fade 2. The stars swirl in the sky as the world spins. Dazzling green borealis. White light licks up from behind the cliffs, the rising sun. Exterior, Coastal Road, day. The faint blues of early morning. Arthur stirs awake, sits up, cracks his neck, uncomfortable position, still woozy from the night before. Wanders off towards the cliff. Exterior, Coastal Cliffs, day. Bottom of the cliff, Arthur pisses in the ocean, lost in thought. Clinking armor. Arthur startles, nearly loses his footing. John sits 10 feet away, tackle box laid out all over the slick rocks. He slips off his bracers, one after the other. His wrists and hands are badly burned and scarred underneath. Arthur ties up, makes his way over.
Would you like my help?
John nods, passes Arthur his braces. Arthur places them securely on a jutting out stone nearby. They rattle with energy, just as Arthur's getting curious.
Military, yeah?
Arthur gives John a look of surprise and confusion.
Oh, I can talk just fine. Most days I'd rather listen.
Arthur can appreciate that. He sits down beside John.
We're in the habit of waking early, aren't we?
John digs out a worm, stabs it onto a hook.
I was a bannerman.
Foot soldier.
Sparkling ocean.
They didn't care if I lived or died, so I died. You?
John grins, but his grin gives way to a cough, a horrible hacking dry cough. He catches his breath, returns to the grin, but his eyes are dead, long gone, far away. He looks out across the sea, flings his line across the waves. A moment goes by, no bites.
I've seen your magic. Can't you blast that fish out of the water?
John just smiles. Arthur nods. He understands. That's what makes it rewarding. No bites yet, but it's peaceful. Arthur watches the sunrise with wonder. John grins and nudges him with his shoulder.
You look like you've never seen a sunrise before.
Oh, I'll see my family again.
John's expression, soft, sympathetic, perhaps a twinge of regret. A bite. John reels the line back and, exterior, Coastal Road, day. The party enjoys a breakfast of cooked fish. The driver gulps back her portion.
Oughta get a move, huh?
Haley and Sir Bremen nurse a hangover. John and Arthur share a private smile. Brayla shrieks impatiently. Cut to, the carriage rolls down the road towards, exterior, Ismanthier Estate, day. A black spiky tower of death stabbing 300 feet high above the tips of the trees in the distance. The driver rears back on her reins. She calls back.
I ain't getting within half a click of that damnable place.
Interior, carriage, day. Sir Bremen almost seems excited. He reaches for the door.
Tell the driver she's a coward.
She's a coward and she's alive. We're on foot.
I ain't got shoes.
You've got calluses.
He's already out the door. Haley groans. John gives her a nudge and an understanding smile. She gives him a half smile back, follows Sir Bremen. Arthur struggles to control Brayla. She wants out. He looks to John, private.
How do I talk to Sir Bremen? He doesn't think I need to know the same as everyone else. John, you've been through a lot. John, you've been through what I've been through. The lack of power, the lack of understanding. Frozen in the awe of power you can't possibly hope to understand.
John nods.
How do I prove myself to someone who barely acknowledges my presence?
John motions Arthur to lean close. Closer. Closer. John shrugs, grins, leaves Arthur in the carriage alone. Good luck.
What can we call this spiky architectural monstrosity?
Exterior, Ismanthier Estate, day. Sir Bremen passes payment to the driver. John draws Haley's attention to the tallest spire, then a sign on the road. Arthur reads the sign aloud.
The Ismanthier Estate.
God bless you.
Sir Bremen jogs to catch up with them.
The lady prefers slither.
Like a snake, I reckon.
Like a snake. We'll climb to the top of the tower and rescue her from prison.
Arthur is nervous. He's got Brayla on a rope. He palms the hilt of his short sword, a low moan from the base of the tower. Arthur's hair stands on end.
Do you mind if I wait outside?
Sir Bremen's words are dark.
You're safer with us.
Arthur contemplates this with growing horror. Even Haley is filled with trepidation. Prelap, a blast of magic. Interior, Ismanthier Estate, first floor, day. White radiant light burns a hole through a reanimated corpse. Arthur is jostled and sickened and horrified.
Oh, gods.
Barely time to register the geography of the place, a winding hallway of blank stone with tapestries displaying the history of a once great noble family. Sir Bremen launches himself into a crowd of charting zombies, beating them back with his quarterstaff, energy exploding from him like pulses from a dying star.
Arthur, down! John, left!
Haley directs the action from the back lines, barking orders, drawing and firing arrows at lightning speed. Arthur dives to the cold stone floor. John's halberd cracks into existence and embeds itself in the skull of a zombie with a thunk. Brayla screams. The horde stream around Sir Bremen to get at the lamb. Arthur stabs his broken short sword through a zombie's gut, but it just presses onward, pushing against him, claws scraping against his face. Blam! Green energy explodes its head.
Turn them now!
Sir Bremen calls down images of a celestial visage. The zombies scatter backwards. Haley mutters an incantation and manipulates her fingers. An illusion of Brayla appears on the cold stone, silently scampering against the wall, ineffectually. The zombies dive on the illusion, moaning with confusion as their hands pass straight through.
Pound them to dust!
John blasts them one by one with green fairy magic exploding from his bracers. Sir Bremen smashes their decaying bodies to bits, and Arthur stops shaking long enough to finally gather his bearings. He blinks, breathes deep, smacks his ears, wipes his goopy short sword on a piece of cloth, sheathes his short sword back in its scabbard, slaps himself in the cheek, whack, and again, whack, shivers from goosebumps. John offers a hand. Arthur takes it with appreciation. John hoists Arthur up to his feet. Haley digs her boot onto a dead zombie's chest for leverage, yanks an arrow out of its face with a schlup.
Necromancy, ain't it?
John nods. Interior, Ismithery Estate, 5th floor, day. Walls made of bones. Bones snapping and cracking out of the walls until they form an army of zombie soldiers. Cut to. Those same zombies now in pieces again on the floor. Arthur notices dented helmets and broken short swords and scraps of leather armor. Soldiers, just like he once was. Interior, Ismithery Estate, 21st floor, day. As the group wanders through the regal hallway, the walls seem to draw further and further away, widening the hallway until they're in a dark cavern. Haley lights a lantern. Ahead, about 100 feet, the glow of something white. They inch closer. Sir Bremen gasps, draws his quarterstaff, traces the holy sigil with his hand.
What is it?
From the ceiling, a dozen candelabras burst to life with that indigo flame, revealing a dragon skeleton.
Gods.
The dragon skeleton raises its head, glaring at the party with burning orbs for eyes. It opens its mouth, blasts them with a thunderous shriek.
Sir Bremen, get close! John, lock it down! Arthur, keep me covered! I'm going round its flank! Spread out! Spread out!
The dragon spine snaps at Sir Bremen. Sir Bremen grabs its enormous jaw and holds it open. Blam! 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 John hits it 3 times with green blasts from his bracers, then rushes forward. Haley strafes around the side, letting loose arrow after arrow until she reaches for her quiver and finds it empty. Arthur dodges its skeletal tail, throws himself to the ground, covers Brayla with his body. Brayla screams in fear. John summons forth ethereal green flames, and the dragon is momentarily entranced. Until, smash! Sir Bremen jams his quarterstaff into one of its eyes, pounding radiant energy through its entire body, and it rears its head back. But Haley has clambered onto its neck, and she stabs at its remaining eyes again and again. The head crashes to the ground, right beside Arthur. Arthur, sensing an opportunity, lunges for the dragon, and he plunges his short sword into its eye, joining Haley's dagger for the final blow. The fire dies. The dragon's bones crumble. A long pause. Everyone cheers. The walls snap back into place, nearly crushing Haley and Sir Bremen, but all is forgotten as they spot the stairwell.
This is it. 22nd floor.
Arthur clings tightly to his short sword.
What kind of man would design such a horrible place? What kind of woman is worth such effort?
John grins. Sir Bremen gives him a disdainful look.
She's not trapped here. She just hates company.
On Arthur, dawning comprehension, then dawning horror. Interior, Slither's chamber, night. An immaculate windowless bedchamber, a feather mattress on a bed of bones, dried human skin trailing down in curtains, a bookshelf of 1,000 tomes bound in flesh. A woman paints at an easel. The brush moves of its own accord. A half-finished painting of a beautiful young lady with shiny golden hair and suntanned skin. The woman turns. Slither, 19, is the same lady in the painting, but her skin is so pale, it's almost gray. Her eyes are dark, her hair is bleached white, her cheeks are sunken. She smiles. Sir Bremen steps forward first. Slither's slim dress shimmers as she meets him halfway. They embrace. He holds her tight, she sinks into his arms. Fade 2. Sir Bremen and Slither sit on the bed together, chatting in Elvish, a beautiful language where meaning is conveyed through music. Slither isn't an elf. She speaks with an obvious accent, faltering over words. Her second language.
And the flesh golem. It took me 2 weeks to scrounge up the materials.
You don't need so many defenses.
How else might I ensure you're the only one who'd dare to visit?
Haley takes a nap at the foot of the bed, snoring quietly. John examines the painting. He mutters something softly at first, then louder and louder. Arthur feeds Braylon and listens.
The Raven Queen grew jealous of the beauty of the living and came to Slither's grave to bring beauty to the dead.
Slither perks up at John's words.
Oh, dear John, don't tell him stories like that. I'm not a zombie. They buried me alive.
Arthur loses control of Braylon. The lamb squeals and bounds forward, headbutting Slither in the leg. Slither finds it amusing. She hikes up her dress to give Braylon a pat, but Braylon scampers away.
I've never seen a lamb with such beautiful skin and her fleece.
The lost gold of the Queen of the Fallen Courts.
Oh, I've never been much for fey magic. It's not my specialty. Let's stick to common, shall we? I'd rather not alienate my guests.
Sir Bremen gets up, removes Slither's painting from the easel, sets it down, puts up another blank canvas, dips the paintbrush in red dye.
The Queen of the Fallen Courts fell in love with the oldest of the Arch Frey, Lord Cowles of the Litter and the Peat.
Lord Cowles isn't to be trifled with.
You said you know little of the Fae.
I know of life and death.
While they speak, Braylon rampages around the room, breaking skeletal supports, smashing against the bed frame, ripping books from the bookshelf, scattering their pages. Sir Bremen paints a rose. He's a skilled painter, just like Slither. Around the rose, he paints a hempen rope, forming a necklace with a rose as its centerpiece.
Lord Cowles rebuffed her advances and her fury she raised in the land, killing the fields, the trees, and the crops, turning autumn into winter.
He draws a figure wearing the necklace. No head yet, just a black cloak and black sleeves floating in midair.
He bound her in a rose on his cloak. Her court fell to pieces, and the wondrous flakes of the gold settled in the fleece of the newly born lamb, and all its descendants bear the same mark, cultivated by a dark shepherd to keep the queen alive.
His paintbrush glows white, the white of bone. The blank sections of the canvas turn red like blood. He paints white over red. He paints the skull of a goat.
Those who cross Lord Cowles meet their end more quickly and brutally than they can possibly imagine.
The final picture, a horrifying monster, a god, an undead creature of nightmares with a beautiful rose on its cloak.
That lamb. It's his link to our world, is it not?
Sir Bremen nods. Slither casually waves her hand and mutters a quick prayer. Braylon's feet leave the ground. The lamb levitates 5 feet high, flailing, screaming. Arthur tackles Slither. Arthur isn't a big man, but compared to Slither, he's huge. She pounds ineffectually at his chest.
Don't you dare hurt her.
Slither's eyes flash. She melts into a puddle of blood. Arthur stares for a moment, then screams. Scrambles back, staring at the blood all over his hands, slamming into the wall, clutching his face. He can barely stop screaming long enough to hear Sir Bremen laughing. He looks again. Slither is fine. Looks at his hands, no blood. Everything is fine. His screams awoken Haley. She gives him a disapproving look. Come on, man.
It takes courage to tackle a sorcerer.
What did you do to me?
A simple illusion. You obviously care deeply for the lamb.
Her name is Brayla.
Slither looks to John, a look of understanding. John motions for her to let the lamb down. She complies.
You want me to come?
John nods. Sir Bremen clarifies.
You have mastery over the undead. Our enemy controls life and death.
Any kills you make are mine to experiment with. Then let's go.
Arthur cradles Brayla in his arms. Brayla nuzzles him with affection. Interior, Ice Smithery's estate, 21st floor, night. Slither caresses the dragon's skull. Dark energy washes through the bones. The dragon's bones gather back together in a hideous clacking cacophony. John kneels down by a scrap of green flesh on the floor. He gives Slither a quizzical expression.
This wasn't here before.
There are many of my creations you haven't seen.
He holds up a goblinoid short sword. Slither blinks. Her ritual halts with the dragon half put together. Its pieces hang in midair.
I don't have any goblins.
Interior, Ice Smithery estate, 1st floor, night. The floor is littered with the corpses of goblins, bugbears, and zombies. 2 bugbears fight side by side, covering each other's flanks, beating back the hordes with spiked maces. Slither makes a gesture and mutters a prayer. All the moisture drains from the bugbears' bodies. Their dry husks collapse into the growing pile of the dead.
Come. There are surely more.
Haley gives a zombie a wide berth. It ignores her.
Can we take them with us?
Of course.
Already, the dead begin to rise. Goblins with missing arms, spilled guts, broken necks. They rise as zombies and wander aimlessly around the room. The two bugbear husks attempt to stand, but their legs are too brittle and they collapse to dust.
Ugh, that's disgusting.
Slither hides her face under a purple hood, motions to Sir Bremen.
Darling Sir Bremen, what's our plan of attack?
You can get some mules from the elven village nearby. Then it's a day and a night to the grove.
Brayla bares her teeth at a zombie goblin. It ignores her. Arthur quickly comforts her and averts her eyes. Exterior, Gandalf Forest, night. 5 figures stretching through a black forest road. Behind them, thundering footsteps of dozens of zombies. Arthur shies away from the darkness of the trees. Slither, John, and Sir Bremen press on unafraid. Haley hangs back with Arthur, one eye on the zombie horde.
Is everything okay?
She killed an army of goblins with a flick of her wrist. She made me think she'd melted. And I mean, I truly, genuinely believed it.
It's okay to be afraid of her. She's scary. If she doesn't like you, she'll kill you and make you her eternal servant. And then it's time for breakfast.
What am I doing here?
Your job.
Arthur looks down at Brayla. He's not so sure. Up ahead, shimmers a fairy light through the trees. Haley and Arthur freeze up, but...
Relax. It's Gandalcrest.
Sir Bremen pulls his hood tighter against his head. Haley gives him a sly look.
I expect you'll translate?
Slither speaks Elvish, too.
You really think they'd talk to me?
Sir Bremen bristles, relents. Fine.
I'll send my army ahead. We'll catch up with them quick.
Exterior, Gandale Crest, night. Tree houses strung together with rope bridges. Sir Bremen pulls back his hood, his ears taper to a gentle point. Squirrel-like creatures dash in and out of the shadows. Elven children giggle and scurry up trees. Emaciated old elven men wash clothes with a sprinkle of magic. Groups of elves stare straight ahead in a trance and in some semblance of sleep. Arthur stares at an elven woman as she strides by. Not out of lust, out of horror. Yes, she's beautiful, but she's also weird. Thin as a stick, skin as thick as bark, gaunt features more cat than human, ears like knives. Slither runs her hand across Arthur's shoulders.
Careful. She'll put a hex on you.
Arthur shakes her off, shivers. Interior, Gandalcrest Stables, night. Animal stables at the base of a great tree. The stables have been grown from the tree itself. The roots form the structure. A layer of bark forms the shelter. Mules stand, unrestrained, zoned out in a haze of mist. The stable owner raises her elongated fingers, a complex symbol in sign language. She says something in Elvish. Sir Bremen stares. Everyone looks to him, but he's stumped. He backpedals.
I'm sorry. Regional tongues.
He mutters something in Elvish. She raises her hand, wiggles her thumb, a dismissive gesture. Sir Bremen repeats himself. She repeats the gesture.
She doesn't understand what I'm saying.
Tell her we need 5 mules.
Sir Bremen clears his throat, mutters something. The stable owner's ears twitch. She leans in. Sir Bremen says it louder. She seems annoyed. He gives up, points to the mules, 5 fingers. Haley laughs.
I could have done that.
The stable owner smiles a horrible, emotionless smile. She motions to her stables. 5 mules wander out, drugged up. She raises 12 fingers. Sir Bremen digs out a handful of silver coins. She refuses to take them. 12 fingers again. Sir Bremen insists, but no, not enough. The stable owner thinks, digs into her pockets, produces the gold piece, puts it away. 12 fingers. Sir Bremen sighs, gives her a handful of gold pieces.
12 gold for a couple of mules?
Haley shrugs.
You're a terrible negotiator.
She laughs, punches him in the calf.
Grab Brayla. Pick a mule. We got a few days' trek.
Arthur scoops up Brayla. She nuzzles his shoulder. He hops onto the back of an ugly mule. The others do the same. Just as they're about to kick off, a young elven girl, unusually tall, scurries up to her mum. The stable owner smirks and whispers something. Slither gasps. Sir Bremen stops cold, leaps off his mule, grabs the stable owner, wham, shoves her up against the tree trunk. The elven girl grabs him, but he presents an emblem around his neck, smearing it in her face, screaming in Elvish. The elves shrink back. John places a hand on Sir Bremen's shoulder.
There is no need to be upset.
Sir Bremen heaves, exhausted. He lets the elves go, leaps onto the back of his mule, gives it a kick. The others follow along beside him, exchanging glances. John rides up by Sir Bremen, wraps his arm around his shoulders, whispers some words in his ears, calming him down. Arthur touches Slither's arm.
What did they say?
Slither is shaken a little.
Mule.
Arthur looks down at the mule he's riding.
Not the animal, Arthur.
Slither indicates, subtly, to Sir Bremen.
I've known him since we were little. We've argued, we've fought, we've screamed profanities in each other's faces, but I've never stooped so low as to call him a mule. Understand what I'm saying?
He's a high elf.
He's a half-human.
Arthur thinks about this. He nods, solemn.
All right, and that brings us to intermission. Great work, you guys. We're going to take 5, and we'll be right back.
Terrorist facilities, and military assets that support Muammar Gaddafi's subversive activities. Colonel Gaddafi is not only an enemy of the United States. His record of subversion and aggression against the neighboring states in Africa is well documented and well known. He has ordered the murder of fellow Libyans in countless countries. He has sanctioned acts of terror in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, as well as the Western Hemisphere. And for us to ignore by inaction the slaughter of American civilians and American soldiers, whether in nightclubs or airline terminals, is simply not in the American tradition. I said that we would act with others if possible, and alone if necessary, to ensure that terrorists have no sanctuary anywhere. Tonight, we have. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, we are back here. Intermission just finished. We were reading Arthur Shepherd by William Roeder. And we're going to do something we haven't done here before. We're actually going to stop now and just read that half of it rather than reading the entire script. So I apologize, William. The reason for that, I have a couple reasons. One is that I wasn't aware this is based on a D&D campaign, and I don't really know anything about that stuff, but I prefer original content. Not to say that, you didn't come up with the story, but and I don't know anything about D&D, but my understanding is that, it borrows a lot from something already existing, which we usually don't do. But, I hope that hearing the first half is going to be helpful for you. And we're still going to give you notes on how it is so far. And if any of our table readers should decide they want to read the whole thing, I can give them, your email. They can send you notes as well. But that's my main reason for stopping now. The second reason is it's a lot of narration, and it's a 120-page script. So these things combined have made me decide to stop here. So I'm going to join our table readers now and get their feedback. One moment, please. Okay, hey everybody, hope you enjoyed your intermission. I've just let everyone on Twitch know that we are going to stop here for a few reasons. One of them being that I was notified that this script is based on a D&D campaign or something of that nature, and that I prefer to do original content, based on original characters. So we are going to stop here, but we're still going to give our notes, our thoughts on the script so far. And I'm going to start at the bottom of our list. Yeah, I know the characters are kind of original. The thing is, I don't know anything about D&D, but I just feel like this, I don't know. You got me. Why are you giving me a hard time, Tintin? Anyways, I'm going to start with you, Tintin. Let's hear your thoughts on the script so far.
All right, so I think you have a strong descriptive voice, which is really good. You have a pretty strong character voice, also very good. I think if this is based on a campaign, that you should go through and change all the names that are references to like D&D stuff, like Shadow Monk, Hypnotic Pattern, Feywild, Raven Queen. Just anything, partly because you don't want to be attached to that, and partly because some of it is like copyrighted. I think you need to cut down a lot here. Obviously, you're a little over the usual standard of 120. I think there is a solid core here. I really do like the story of finding like a golden fleece that is attached to an evil killer lamb. I think that would be a really solid, like, not comedy, but slightly comedic premise for a fantasy movie. But the thing is, it takes like 30 pages to get to that point. So I think you need to cut down, focus on that core story, and then if you find yourself coming short after the end, you can add on more than that. So thank you for submitting.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for submitting. Thank you, Tintin, for your feedback. Moving on now to Script Shack. Script Shack? Oh my god. I am really off my game. Script Chick.
A for effort.
Welcome back. It's been a while. What were your thoughts on the script?
Well, hi, William. Thank you for submitting. I do play D&D, so I like fantasy worlds. And I did actually see World of Warcraft in theaters. So I might be your audience for this, but I really do agree you need to simplify a lot and just kind of condense what your story is, because I feel like even in World of Warcraft, you had that orc guy, who was, you were following along on his journey, and then you had the Human King. So you have these really strong characters leading the action, and you start off with Arthur, who doesn't even know why he's who he's fighting and why. Like, he's asking a lot of questions in the battle, so he's just not that much of a strong character. And so, but then you kind of shift anyways midway through to Sir Bremen, um and he seems like he has more power, but I never really got on board with like what exactly these characters were doing and why it was so important. It was cool when some soldier mentioned the drow and spiders. I just don't think we saw those spider fights and the drow in that battle before it was over very quickly. And this has happened on page 7, is that I think the goblin is the first introduction of fantasy for me. I mean, you have in your action description paralyzed by the thunder, so I didn't know if that was some magical aspect, but I think for this type of story, you really need to get out there from the get-go what kind of realm this is. Also, because I don't know if goblins are evil in this world, to see these people just kind of throwing a spear at this defenseless thing that is screaming and crying in your action description kind of almost seemed like the humans were the dicks of your world. So just in how you present the violence and character intros, I would look at that. The title, again, like I can understand if this is ensemble because it's a fantasy D&D, but your title says Arthur Shepherd, so I think this movie's about Arthur. And if it is, he's definitely not strong enough to carry this feature. Small note on page 5, I just thought them saying they fuck, that kind of pulled me out because everything else kind of seemed fit for a PG-13 audience, and you just get right down to it that they were fucking. So, I don't know, a little bit more nice wordplay there. Things I liked. I really liked Pieter's death. I thought that was sudden, but very appropriate and gruesome for the situation they're in. So it shocked me. Also, then on your 16, the way the dwarf breaks out. Again, they seem kind of like really dicks to these dwarves. So I don't know like what side is what, who has done what to each other. But it saddens me a little bit. Page 17, I felt that we're still in the midst of this montage because we're going from one scene to the next with action. And it's cool action, but there's just not enough pauses for you to have enough character stuff to really, for me to know these people, what they're about, for me to really get on board before we're kind of like marching off to the next, either adding someone to the party or fighting the next monster thing. So I would really focus on that, just the characters. Like, you have a nice moment with Sir Bremen and Haley. They seem to be talking about their backstories, but I just don't really know if they're listening to each other, because once Haley finishes her backstory, then Sir Bremen says his, and there isn't really any like dialogue between them. They're just kind of like laying it all out there and getting drunk off a cliff. So yeah, page 46, I kind of wondered why we needed Slither. I mean, she has a cool undead army, but why is she so special for the lamb thing? Because that seemed like to be the big plot with the golden fleece. And also what Arthur has to do with it. Otherwise, he's just being pulled along for the ride. And then 47, I like the zombies in the castle. I thought that was really cool. I just think you can milk that moment more, because all of a sudden there's zombies there, and then just as quickly they're gone or taken care of. So I think you can milk that, because that had a moment for great suspense and build. Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, I kind of wish you had more to say there, Script Chick, but I guess I can just go with that. No, that was great. Really, really great notes. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Script Chick, also known as Script Check. And now moving on to Nave, our narrator. What were your thoughts on the script?
Well, since Script Chick didn't really cover anything whatsoever, I guess I'll go in. Really just comes down to, I think, the opening sequence. And I know that we're trying to establish Arthur as a character, but there's nothing about that journey for the first 20 pages or so that really grabs me. And again, this is relatively subjective, so you can take it with a mountain of salt. And then when we do meet up with the other characters, literally every single other person we come across is that much more interesting than our would-be protagonist. And that kind of makes it hard to invest in him emotionally. There's that. There's how some of the narration is written. Script Chick did already covered most of that, I think, perfectly well, so there's no need to rehash it. I'd be aware of mixing modern euphemisms and idioms into a script like this, if for no other reason than it just takes you out. So, I guess that's really about it. The end.
The end. Yeah, I just made a quick note there about the narration. Although I'm, doing a lot of multitasking, the one thing that stood out to me was sparkling ocean. That was weird, and I think it would be better to say the ocean sparkles, or just say something that's an action line. Yeah. Moving on. Jux, what were your thoughts?
What they said. No, seriously. Thank you for submitting your script. Based on what I've heard so far, I must say your D&D session does seem pretty amazing, as I am a slight D&D fan myself. I do agree with the majority that, Arthur is pretty much one-dimensional at best. If I had to compare it, if you had a white wall, you would get a giant, can of paint. You could paint him and say, there you go, now he's fascinating. And then over time, he starts kind of paling out. So you get another color of paint and then put that one there and splash it. It's like, is he still there? It's just to kind of keep him in the moment. He doesn't have a lot to, that bears weight. He doesn't have a lot to kind of hold on to. And I totally agree with Nave that a lot of the other characters were more fascinating. You had, Sir Brennan with the half-elf thing. You had Haley, who was like a rogue type figure, who was just, she's very well-rounded. She's seen and very well experienced in what she does. And you have John the quiet, everyman type. Even Brayla is adorable, although I do not quite understand the following with the lamb. But that's okay. From what I've heard and what I've read so far, you got good structure, but it's still weak in a lot of places. And I was a little disappointed with page 5. Everything's like grandiose and great description, and all of a sudden they fuck. I'm like, come on, you can't make everything else romantic, and this is just straight. Well, there it is. But for the most part, what you have, I guess I just agree with the majority of what everyone said so far. But again, thank you for submitting your script. I hope I was able to bring one of your characters to life, despite her dying in the short time period, but that's okay. Anyway, you have a great day and take care of yourself, and
yep, have a great day. Yeah. Jux, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. You've come a long way since you first started with us, and I remember you were afraid to give feedback because you didn't think you were qualified or you knew how to do it, and now you're an ace at it. I think you give great feedback, and it just warms my heart to see how far you've come.
Oh, thank you. I have tried so hard at that. Wait, no.
Okay, moving on to Frog. What up, Frog? What were your thoughts on the script?
What's up? Thank you for sharing. I'm not familiar with D&D, so so my notes are strictly from a storytelling aspect, since I'm not really into fantasy and that stuff. But your strongest suit in the script is definitely the writing. The writing style is really visual, but I think you came across a situation where you had so much stuff that you wanted to say that you try to pack it all in there. So I think you need to just, lay it all out, pinpoint the story you want to tell, and then create a through line. But right now it just feels like a series of set pieces, which are cool, but without anything to latch onto or any, character to follow. It sort of, makes you feel lost, and the goals get muddied in these huge grandiose things with no meaning. So I think you just need to pinpoint the story you want to tell, and you have all the information you need. You just need to cut at it until you just say what's important and create a through line for the script. I think that's the most important part. That's all I have to say. Everything else has been said before.
Right on. Thank you very much, Frog. And finally, Bashua Jealous, who played Arthur. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on the script since you played this character that everyone thinks needs to be a lot stronger. What did you think?
Hi, thank you for submitting. Like everyone else was saying, I totally agree. I really like the action descriptions. I'm a big fan of like clear action, so I could really tell what was going on physically. But then kind of got lost a little bit in terms of why it was happening. And when you're reading the lines, sometimes you have to you need to be able to latch on to key plot points that tell you why characters are doing things and why they fought the zombie horde. Oh, that's right, they wanted to get into the building. But like everyone else was saying, I don't have much to add there. But in terms of Arthur, I can appreciate the humor of his situation, that he's just a stoic, single-minded farmer in this, or not farmer, but a shepherd in this long journey. But like everyone else was saying, he could probably use a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, it was the lines were fairly straightforward in terms of his intentions, I guess. He always had the same counter response for a lot, just very honest and open, and like, why are we doing this? Are you sure? Okay, well, that's weird, but all right. I guess I don't like that, but I'll do it. So, yeah, not a lot else to add besides that, but I liked it. Thanks for submitting.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bashwa. And that is it. So thank you again to all the table readers. Really appreciate you guys giving us your time to perform this script. Thank you to William for submitting it, and to everyone on Twitch for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to Poop Robot, who's like the one guy talking in our chat on Twitch. I hope you enjoyed the show. Come back next week at 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll be reading something else. If you have a script you'd like us to read, go to twitchtablereads.com, click on submit your script, and we will do it for free. However, there is a long wait period because we have a lot of scripts in the queue. So if you can't wait, you can check out our new paid table read service called ScriptWax at scriptwax.com. All right, so that's the end of our show. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So long, farewell.